Hello, everyone. This is Kerwin, and welcome to another episode of What's Happening in Travel with Kusher and Kerwin. I am Kerwin, and Kusher is not here today. Uh, whew, quite a week. First, let me talk about my background. Background I have today is JetBlue, well, not JetBlue, Blade helicopter, which flies out of. They have two ports in New York, and this is the West 30th Street port. And I took a helicopter flight, and it ties in with this week's topic because we're going to talk about other ways you can take an airline flight without a plane. So this is not a new concept. Airlines have been doing this forever. I think like in 1984, SAS had a hovercraft, and that hovercraft actually went from, I'll tell you in a sec. Okay. I always have my notes ready, and then when I go to find them, they're not there. Because for some reason, I get rid of them before I get on the call. But SAS used to, suffice it to say, SAS used to fly they had a hovercraft service between Malmo and Copenhagen airport. So what would happen is that you would get on, you'd buy a ticket, and your ticket would be Malmo to, let's say, New York. But the Malmo to Copenhagen portion is on a hovercraft. Now, if you've actually been to the Malmo, I've not been to Malmo, but I've been to Copenhagen. And the Copenhagen airport is actually just across the way from Malmo. And there's a bridge that goes from Copenhagen. That area is called I can't remember, it's after the K. But that area, there's a bridge that you can drive under the water, and then you come up and you go on the actual bridge itself, and that takes you across to Malmo. Actually, on a clear day, you can see Malmo from the Copenhagen airport. But so that's what happens. So that kind of service has been around for a long time. I also flew from I bought a ticket on Etihad. I was going from Dubai to Kuwait City, and I wasn't flying Emirates, which is based in Dubai. I was flying Etihad, which is the other airline in Dubai. Sorry, in the Emirates. Abu Dhabi is in Emirates, just like you have the United States, and you have all the states. Same thing with the United Arab Emirates, and they will and so they're all different states. So Dubai is one, and Dubai has its own airline, which is Emirates. And then there's Etihad, which is based in Abu Dhabi. And so there's like Sharjah is the one that you can actually take a bus to either Sharjah or Abu Dhabi. And also the Emirates. Sharjah has its own airport, and so does Abu Dhabi, and Etihad is based there. So what I did, I bought the ticket from Dubai to Kuwait City. And what it does, it takes me from Dubai. There's a bus, it's about a 90-minute bus, and it's all branded Etihad. And I took my airline ticket and took a bus from Abu Dhabi over to from downtown Dubai, a little nondescript bus stop. And I take it from there, and they actually gave you a meal on that flight. I was gonna say, you get a little sandwich and juice or something like that because it's a flight. And then you get off in Abu Dhabi airport outside security, and then you go through security, and then I took my flight to Kuwait City. So not a new concept, just not used so much in the US. But the portion in the US is actually the from Allentown to what's called Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton, Pennsylvania Airport. There is a bus service that's been operated by United for ever, as long as I can remember. And it's by Continental Express at the time, which I guess is now United Express. But the bus service goes from the airport. So right outside the departure level, you board right there to take your bags and everything. And you sit on that bus and then you take that bus into Newark. And it drops you outside security and you clear security and you're good. They take your bags and everything. And your bags are tagged to your final destination, all that kind of good stuff. And when you're coming the other way, you go you go downstairs, is where they have it, and I think they still do. One of the concourse areas, you go downstairs and you take the bus, and the bus picks you up inside security, and it takes your bags and everything and takes you to Allentown. Now, because there's a pilot shortage, the airlines are thinking of different ways to make this work. And so United and American Airlines both have bus services. United started it first using it with a company called Landlines. And so if you're flying, I'll always end up saying flying, right? So if you're flying from Fort Collins, what it will do, it'll take you Fort Collins to the Denver airport. That's where the bus will go, and you pick up your plane from there, and you can go to wherever you want to go in the United system. The other one is Breckenridge. It also goes from Breckenridge system, and there is it's a really good service. And one of the reasons why they're doing this is because of the pilot shortage, right? And they don't have the pilots to fly all these routes. So, and on the bus, you have reclining leather seats, they say, free Wi-Fi and streaming service, trade tables, and in-seat power. I've not taken one of these bus flights yet. The new ones anyway. I did take the old one, the Continental Express one, and it was on like a little bus. It's quite interesting. There were no tray tables. There was no Wi-Fi. There's no meal service. There's no flight attendant. On the Etihad service, there was is a flight attendant, and so that was kind of cool. And then so American has similar service, and American goes between. I'll give you that a trip. The company that runs the service is called Landline, and Landline also offers its own bus services. So it's not just say they do this for the airline, and there's a third airline. I'll tell you the third airline in a sec. So you get it's just like taking a flight. So it goes between Philadelphia Airport and Allentown, and Atlantic City and Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So these are areas that you used to have to fly, and now they have the buses that will take you there. Now they're working on being able to connect you from inside security to inside security. And I think they just got approval for that. So when you take one of these buses like Philadelphia to Allentown or something, if you pick it up inside, let's say Allentown to Philadelphia, if you're going from, let's say, Allentown to Los Angeles, you'd go in security, you'd go down to the bus would take you from there to Philadelphia, go through the security gates, however they do the checks and stuff, and then you wouldn't have to go through TSA again. Then you would just be able to go. I think that's what they're doing. Now, one thing that most people don't know is some of the smaller airports don't have any TSA. And so when you come to these smaller airports, you end up getting checked when you get to the major airport like Denver or something like that. It doesn't happen in many airports, but they just don't have TSA security in some of the airports because they're small communities. And it's kind of back to the day when people used to travel normally, right? Everybody knows each other. And it's actually really cool to go into these little airports because everyone is so nice. Everyone says hello, how are you, and things like that. And it's kind of what if you're old enough, then you would have gone through airports when they didn't have any security, or when you could actually go down to the gate and meet your loved ones, or say whatever you need to do, or just go watch planes, because lots of these small airports, they had these restaurants, and people used to come to the airports just to watch the planes. So they'd have lunch or dinner or something there and just watch planes. That used to be a thing. Now, all these airports that had these quote unquote waving galleries no longer have them. And you go to some of these airports like in the Caribbean, and they have big sign that says, don't take photos of the airplane. I'm like, really? It's a photo. And when we take pictures, that's like your first line of defense, because if we see something happening, we're gonna either take a photo of it or notify someone or something like that. So we are actually working with you guys because we love aviation. We're not going to see something going on and say nothing about it, right? So the other airline that also does service is Sun Country. They do stuff out of Minneapolis. So it's kind of cool that you're finding this in the US, because normally you don't have that. Now it's not just buses that they have, there's also trains. So in this might actually be in Paris too, but I know Lufthansa has train service. So getting into some of the smaller cities, you can buy a ticket from like a small city and it connects in Frankfurt, and then from Frankfurt to wherever you want to go in the world. But the first piece or the last piece is on the train that takes you there. Now, trains are not unique just to Europe. United used to have service from Stamford, Connecticut with Amtrak. And it would take you from Stamford into New York, and then from New York into Newark Airport Station. And then you jump on your plane from there and you carry on where you need to go. I looked at the schedule and I couldn't find it, so I don't think they have them anymore. But this is a service that used to be there. So the next thing you buy an airline ticket and your seat shows BUS or TRN, that just means you're gonna be on a bus or you're gonna be in a train for a portion of the service. And they usually tell you where to show up. So when you go to check in online and things like that, it gives you all the information that you need. In Hong Kong, you can check your bags in Hong Kong Center. You can check in for your flight right there, and you jump on the train, and the train takes you right into the airport, and you go through security after you get there. So this is not a foreign concept. It's just that if you don't fly a lot, you've probably never flown on a train or flown on a ferry or flown on a hovercraft or anything like that. So if you've done one of these services, leave a note and let me know, because it'll be cool to see which routing that you did. So I hope you guys found that story interesting. So let's see what else I got. Okay, so the other story that came along in the line was last year I took a flight from Gatwick, some British Airways, from Gatwick to Antigua to Providenciales. Now, this is in Turks and Caicos Islands. Now, British Airways runs a lot of these flights into the Caribbean, but they don't. It's very costly, and so what they do tag flights. So a tag flight is a flight that it's going to go from A to B to C, and it is going to stop in both places, and then it drop passenger off in B, and then from B to C, that's kind of the tag portion. So the passengers going from A to B, passengers going from A to C. Now, when it gets to B, in my case, that B was Antigua, the passengers got off and they ended up cleaning in quotes the plane, because they came on, they took off trash, and we were still on the plane because you're not allowed to get off in Antigua. It's all in the rules that if you're a transit passenger, you have to stay on the plane. Some airports allow you to get off the plane because they have to clean the entire plane before it goes on. But this one carries on to Providenciales. Now you can actually buy Antigua to Providenciales as a ticket. You can buy it in any cabin. So if you want to experience like the lay flat seats or something, this might be a good route to do it on. Although that route is now changed. But when you get to before I say that, when you get to Providenciales, that is when everybody gets off and they clean the plane and it's ready to go back in the other direction. So it goes Providenciales, Antigua, and I assume in Antigua they do a mini clean again. And then it goes from actually they should, yeah. I mean they do a full clean in Providenciales, and they probably tell you that you have to stay in your seats because otherwise you're gonna mess up the seats for the next person. I don't know how to do because I haven't done that route. But I know when I did the Providenciales, the route from Gatwick to Providenciales via Antigua, the guys came on the plane and they cleaned. But they didn't really clean anything properly. They just removed some of the stuff. But Providenciales, they do a full clean. Then then the airplane starts again, new crew and everything. And they go Providenciales back to Antigua, and then Antigua, pick up passengers in Antigua, and then they go Antigua to Gatwick. And they also sell Providenciales to Antigua. So you can take that route if you need to. But that route is no longer there because now that same flight, they still do Providenciales because Providenciales, Turks and Caicos Islands, one of the British overseas territories. And so they're always going to serve it because it's always got a lot of Brits going to the Caribbean. But now, instead of going all the way to Antigua, they go to Nassau, Bahamas. Why am I telling you all this? Because this particular flight, on its return, it was going Providenciales to Nassau, and then Nassau to London. Now, just some more point of interest about some of these flights. When they do these flights, they will go from, they will have a different crew. So there'll be a different crew that does it Providenciales to Antigua, and then a new crew takes it from Antigua to London. And then, they usually spend like a day or so in Antigua, and then they carry on again. Probably the same thing that happens in Nassau. It happens all over the Caribbean. Virgin just launched some new flights that are going to, I think, Grenada and St. Vincent from Barbados. So if you want to fly like on I think it's an A330 for like 30 minutes, takes you longer to check in and go through security and everything than the actual flight is. But you can run one of those. KLM has a few of those as well. I'm going to do a whole other story about tags, but since we're talking about it, KLM does, they go to St. Martin, and then it goes to Port of Spain, Trinidad, and then it goes back. They used to go to Curacao, and I think they still do Curacao, but it might be just seasonal. It's all summer travel, and the Dutch, the French, and the British, they if I use the right word, they did a whole bunch of Caribbean stuff, and everyone was trying to fight for a different part of the Caribbean. So you end up having French Caribbean, English speaking Caribbean, and Dutch speaking Caribbean. And so now you have all these islands, and the folks from Europe still fly to these places because a lot of these countries are not independent; they're still governed by these countries. A whole other story for another time. But back to Providenciales. So this 777 went from Providenciales to Nassau. Partly when they got to Nassau, they realized that the food storage for that they stored the meals in wasn't working. So all the meals have spoiled. And sometimes what these airlines do is that they'll do double catering. I don't know if this is the case here, but I remember when I used to work in the industry, the airline I worked for went to, what was the place? Bermuda. From, it would have been New York. And it might have been another state, but maybe not Atlanta. So, but when they get to Bermuda, they double cater. So, which means that in the back of the planes, you see those food bins, like that's all stored in the back in the galley. They're very deep, and it's set up so you can actually hold two sets of food. So they would load both sets of food on the plane because they didn't have proper catering in for them in Bermuda. Also, it cuts down on the time that they have sitting the ground. It's more weight, but it wasn't as expensive as it is now. So they would load food in the galley, but there's two sets of food. One for the trip over, and then they flip them around, and the one for the trip back. Well, what happened on this particular case is that whatever they were using to store the food, it spoiled. And so because it spoiled, they had no food. So because there was no food, the flight is maybe 9-10 hours to go to London from Nassau, probably not that much. And it's very cool because it actually goes straight across the Atlantic. It's pretty cool to see, kind of go towards Africa. So they had no food for the passengers. Well, quick thinking of the folks in Nassau, I guess they're trying to find out other catering and if they can get enough food and all that. But it's kind of hard to find airline food for X number of passengers. But I'm pretty sure what's going to happen after this is that BA is going to rethink how they cater these flights and figure out, well, maybe we just need to get a catering company in Nassau to provide food for a flight. But I'm pretty sure they're going to solve this problem because they have to. But anyways, so they get to Nassau, food spoiled, they don't have enough food to serve everybody. And someone had a bright idea. Well, let's just get some Kentucky. So they ordered a whole bunch of Kentucky Fried Chicken to serve the passengers. Now, there's a lot of photos you see online about it, and people are, making fun of the whole thing. But British Airways is a classy airline, and I'm pretty sure that they looked at the whole thing. Now, there's a lot of moving parts of this, right? One, if they cancel the flight, it's going to cost them a lot of money. If they delay the flight, it's still going to cost them a lot of money, but not so much. Because if they cancel the flight, they still have to cater it to go back. So I'm sure they looked at that. Also, there's something called the EU 261 rule, where if the flight is delayed for a certain amount of time, you have to pay each passenger's X amount of dollars. And I'm sure they didn't want to do that either. What a lot of airlines do is instead of canceling the flights, they delay the flight, which I guess, that's all airline operations. But so they didn't cancel. They probably took a delay, but I don't know how long the delay was. Because when you get these stories, you never get the full information, right? It's always, there's a lot of emotions. So people are saying things that somewhat true, but not completely true. Some people exaggerating because that's how you make your point sometimes. And then there's always people going, oh my God, I can't believe the airline did this. Well, the airlines aren't stupid, right? They know what they're doing, and they're in a business, and they're trying to make it work. So I guess they looked at the situation and said, hey, we got, I don't know, maybe 200-300 people on board. Not everybody's going to want to eat chicken. And I don't know, the story is not clear on, they have snacks on the plane too, right? Pretty sure it's just one that gives you some snacks during the plane. And I'm guessing what didn't work was the hot meals. The hot meals is what spoiled. It's still not clear. So they would have had drinks and stuff like that, I would think. And they don't store all the meals in the same part of the airplane. So I don't know if it was all the economy meals, all the business class meals, all the first class meals. It's not clear. But instead of them canceling the flight, what they ended up doing was getting Kentucky and serving them. So what do you think? I mean, what would you do? Think about an airline, and you're running a business, and you can still take care of those passengers, let them get to their connecting flights, and then you can compensate them later, because I'm pretty sure you'd have to compensate these passengers for this service. So let me know what you think, but this is what happened. And Everyone can say whatever they want to say, but I think they did a good job. But that's just me. The other topic I want to talk about is cleaning planes. So I've had this running thing with American. I fly American quite a bit these days. Almost every time I get on a plane with American, there is something. So I was on a 777 going from, I think it was Miami to JFK. And at my seat, I was in their first class cabin because they used to run 777s on that route, the international 777 repositioning. And I found a glass from the previous passengers. So I gave it to the flight attendant, and she, no apology or anything. She was just like, okay. I'm like, okay, fine. So then I was on another flight this week, and I had a spoon. And then on my other flight again this week, there was a wrapper, a chewing gum wrapper. And so I keep sending notes to American and say, hey, look what you left me this time. So I'm looking forward to see what they're gonna leave me the next time around. Now I say this in, it's in jest, but it's not funny. These airlines are supposed to be cleaning the airplanes, and they're rushing. And whenever they rush, they don't clean the airplanes properly. Now, it's contracted out, but I bought a ticket from the airline, not the contractor. And so what they need to do is, and I'm sure it's somebody's task to make sure the airlines or the airplanes are clean. And this is not the case because I've had to clean my. I'll tell you how bad it is. I bring wipes with me, and I use some wipes to clean the plane. The wipes is black. So if the wipes is black, then it means that the airplane surface has not been cleaned. I used to clean airplanes when I start, so I know how to do this, right? And I know how it's done. And typically on an overnight, when the airplanes are overnight, they do a quote unquote deep clean. So first thing in the morning, the airplane should not be dirty because it should have been cleaned overnight. I'm not going to excuse during the day because you should still clean it. But they do lighter cleans during the days because the airplane doing it. But at nights you can do a deep clean, and you should. So it tells me that the airlines they're not flown other airlines too and seen the same way. And I think one of the airlines I flew, they give you a headset. It was in a premium economy, and they give you a headset, but it's in like a paper thing. And I was flying LA to Atlanta. So you can think of which airline that was. And on an A350, and the packet that was left was the packet from the previous headsets that was in the seat in front of me that they supposed to have cleaned. And so it was funny. I had my headset, the new one, plus the little case, the little thing that the old one was in. So come on, airlines, please clean the planes. You say you're cleaning them. You have little things on your website that, yeah, we do this, we do that. So clean them. I mean, you said you clean them during COVID. Well, we hope to clean them during COVID. Now I don't know because they're not being cleaned. And I know that you're running an operation, and sometimes delays and things like that. But if the captain says, I have a mechanical issue, you're not going to fly that plane. So you won't fly the plane until it's fixed. So if the plane is dirty, you should clean it. One of the flights, it was so bad that the pilot took a delay because he went to use the lab that was behind the cockpit, and it was dirty. And so he came on and he says, the lab is dirty. I can't do anything with the lab. It needs to be cleaned, and he called someone to clean it. And so they came back and they cleaned it. So he goes, I can't present that to you as my customers. So someone is not doing their job. And the airfares are not cheap. They're very expensive. And so if you're charging premium airfares, then you guys need to get your act together. And give the customers what they're paying for. Give me what I'm paying for. I'm not paying for a dirty lab, and I'm not paying to have somebody spoon from the previous flight in my seat. So anyway, that is all I have. I have to check if I have feedback, but let me check in 1 sec. Okay, so I did have some feedback. Someone sent in, they said, in episode 102, I talked about the Pirates Air Show. They want to know when I might talk about Calgary. I did Calgary as a destination information thing. I didn't know it was a podcast. So if you go to password.com/Calgary, you'll find all the information, about Calgary. Also, maybe I need to do a podcast episode. They said it in episode 103. I was hating on Seattle. People wanted to visit the Bahamas. I guess it's how I was talking about the destinations. And it says, but seriously, in terms of flight length, is it really that much different than flying from Seattle to Miami? Yeah, it's a little more. I don't think the distance is that much more, but it is a little further. I can't remember exactly what I was talking about in episode 103, though. In 107, the visa episode. Okay, I spoke about the TWA hotel being very expensive. It is. $250 is quite a lot for an airport hotel for one night. And that's on the low end. I went and I checked again. It's $845 to stay at the TWA hotel. That's insane. They need to fix that. No one wants to pay $850 to stay at a hotel. It's not like a 5-star hotel or anything like that. It's a nice hotel with nice views of the airport runway and stuff. But $850, they need to get a grip on that. So one of the things he said about the visa episode is that he didn't realize that Americans needed a visa for Australia. It's not just Americans, some other people do. He says, what happens if you arrive without one? Well, you cannot, because the airlines will not let you get on a plane unless you have their approval. No approval or visa, because some country actually requires a visa. You can't go. Can you buy one there? No, you have to do it online and you pay for it online. That's kind of how it goes. You were unhappy with the article because it said Americans will need a visa into Europe. You said that that's not Europe. It's certain countries. It is certain countries in Europe. It is not the entire, I think it's like 30 countries. It's not the entire Europe that this rule is going for. So those are the comments I had so far. If you have any comments, please email me or drop a note or a comment or something like that. Hope you enjoyed the episode. And this is Kerwin with What's Happening in Travel with Christopher and Kerwin. And we'll talk soon. Have a good trip.